Before we start today's episode, we just wanted to remind you that this Saturday, April 24th, we'll be playing a live stream show at a secret location. We can't tell you where it is, but let's just say it's on the biggest stage we've ever played, so we'll be giving you our biggest show yet. Tickets are just $6, and $20 gives you access to the whole Live in Vancouver series taking place that weekend, so you can also see Said the Whale and Prism. Don't forget, Saturday, April 24th at 9 p.m. We'll put the link in the show notes so you can grab your tickets, and we'll see you there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Band Chat with Royal Oak, where we talk about being an independent band and everything that comes with it. My name is Miles, and I'm going to be your host again for this week for this part 2 of the tour van saga that we are carrying on from last episode. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I would highly recommend you go back and listen to that for some of the precursors and preliminary tidbits for what you're about to hear in this part 2. So in the last part, you heard a little bit about the ship. I think we went into a little bit of depth about our new van, but you're going to hear a lot more about that in this episode here. We're going to go into more of the struggles and other things we faced on certain tours. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is where it heats up. So gear up, get ready, and please enjoy listening to this part 2 of our discussion on tour vans. Like we said, doesn't matter. Shittier the van looks, better it is for us.
And it got worse again.
And indeed, it did. So, enter our first Canadian tour. So, we are feeling amped. We got the van packed. Mind you, how tight was that van? I need you guys like just
Yes.
It was pretty tight.
Yeah.
I remember being in the back seat. You know how most people don't want the middle seat? That wasn't the problem. The problem was the seat on the right, because everyone had to sit sideways to kind of off it. And we usually gave that to Luke.
You got a small butt.
Skinny bum.
We had, because we had the backpacked. We had the whole back of the van, couldn't see at the back. We had a rooftop box that was completely full as well.
Yeah.
And then I think we had some stuff like down the middle. We had we usually didn't open one of the doors because there was like stuff up against it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it was.
She was a full boy.
She sat low. She was like low, like the space between the tire and the what would you call
wheel
that?
well.
The well.
The well.
Thank you. The well.
Mm-hmm.
It was very small. So
Yeah.
we were all loaded up. We were super pumped. First cross Canada tour. And we went and we picked Luke up. I remember the picture. We were ready to go and we took off. So I would love for someone to give the audience an idea of what happened when we got to our first destination of Kelowna.
I will take this because this is the start of like my 3-day anxiety fever dream. So as some background, I'm the worrywart of the band. I'm always the one that's like, let's check everything. We need to get it done. And basically what I'm about to tell you is all my like nightmares about tour coming to fruition in one fell swoop. So grab some popcorn. So essentially we get going on tour, we get everything started, and we make our way to our first stop of the tour, which we just stayed overnight at with Brayson's family in Kelowna.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We pull up into their driveway. And so we're unpacking, and then one of us, I forget who it was, but someone noticed some weird red fluid coming out from underneath the bottom of the van. We're like, oh, that's strange. What is that? We bend over a flashlight, we look underneath, and the van is spewing this red fluid. And just to give people some background, it's ended up being transmission fluid. So essentially, we're all freaking out. We're like, oh my god, we're the first. It's literally the first night. We haven't even played a show yet. The van's already basically just yeeting itself.
Hold on, I want to just say something quickly because there was I don't know if you guys remember this, but we noticed the fluid, and then we were like, okay, like it's fine. Like someone just move the van, and then we'll get it on the street and be good. You guys remember?
I think I moved the van.
Luke, it was either you. Was it you, Mike? Someone moved the van, and the trail just kept following the van, and it went all over the driveway.
All over their
Yeah.
like brand new driveway.
Yeah, it was it was bad. And then eventually, once we realized this was a problem, we walked up the street and we saw the van had left a trail of fluid as we drove up to the house initially.
So we have no idea how long it was going for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So essentially we're like, okay, well, we just got to find a mechanic and get this looked at tomorrow morning, I guess. I didn't fall asleep till 2 a.m. because I was like, oh my God, the world's crashing down. So we get up about 7 a.m. We all hop in the van and the thing literally sputters to the mechanic. And like it's changing gears super hard. You hear the thing grinding. Realistically, we probably should not have driven it. But here we are. We did. So we get it to the mechanic. They take a look at it. They add more transmission fluid back into it. They drive it around. They drive it hard. They're like, weird. Nothing's going on. Like we can't get anything to happen. So we walk our way back from the Tim Hortons we walked to while we sat there and waited for them to take a look. And we're back on the road again.
Yeah.
And so then, sorry, Mike?
That was they like never even took our names.
No.
And so we got the we got the bill for it, and it just said like customer name, 5 guys in a van.
Oh my God.
And at that moment we were like, okay, like crisis averted. That was a weird fluke. Like they couldn't find anything wrong with the van. They really looked. So we're us 5 guys in a van. We're gonna keep trucking on, and I think we felt good.
And
Yeah.
also, I just want to say quickly, you are hearing that right. It was 5 of us in a van, a Ford Windstar, packed full of gear. 5 grown men. So you heard
5
that right.
seats, 5 butts.
Yeah, 5 seats, 5 butts.
Yeah.
So like Austin said, we got back on the road, and things were looking up. We're like, okay, like he said, it must have just been a fluke, right? So onwards we go. And that, I believe that's when we were heading to Fernie, correct?
Yes.
So we were driving, and I remember we were driving, and there was some blue, we started seeing blue smoke coming out the back. And I remember they're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Blue smoke, like that usually means something bad. And then I remember, like, it wasn't that long after the blue smoke where was it the ABS light? ABS light starts flashing.
Oh, yes.
The OD light.
OD light.
Yeah.
That's what
Come
it
on.
was.
And we're like driving, looking through the manual to try and see. And it's like, oh, if you see this light flashing, pull over immediately. So and like for context, like we're southern BC is like very mountainous. So we're going up and down these hills, and we're like, okay, shit. So we pull over in like the Nancy Green Provincial Park
Yep, that's
parking
the
lot
one.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty middle of nowhere on the highway. We're like, shit. So we pull over, we put the van in park, we get out, and we just see like a waterfall from the van.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. The van literally shat itself of all its transmission fluid. And I don't think there was a single drop left. Everything was gone.
No.
I think we know that there wasn't a single drop left because we were like in the middle of the parking lot, and we were like, okay, well, we should at least move. And we got in to move it, and the thing was like, it was like a Jurassic Park, like Jeep. Like it was like shuddering.
Yeah,
We managed
yeah.
to move it, and there was just like a massive puddle of car fluids.
Yes. So at that point, we are freaking out a little bit, more than a little bit, because the van is not moving. Like it is undrivable, and we are about, I think it was 27 or 28 kilometers out of Castlegar, which was our next destination. And so
And we
had
didn't have cell service
exactly.
either.
We had no cell service. So I remember we were like, okay, so I guess we gotta get into town somehow. Like we have to, we gotta get into town. So it came time where it was like, all right, we gotta hitchhike. We gotta hitchhike. And I remember we were like, all right, who's gonna do it? And then our criteria for choosing, I can't remember who said it or who it was, but it was basically like, well, Miles, you're half black, so maybe not you. And then it was like, well, Brayson, I mean, you're Asian, so I mean, who's the most likely to get picked up? And this is us talking about ourselves, guys. Like, this is like, it's completely chill. Like, this is us talking. Sorry, Mike.
It's the unfortunate reality of hitchhiking.
Exactly.
Yeah, at that rate, desperate times call for desperate measures, and that was something we had to think about.
We were like, who are the most clean cut, whitest looking guys? And Luke was not clean cut. He was a rowdy looking dude.
Yeah.
He's the guy that will wear like a like a cut up Jack Daniels like tank top to the grocery store on like a Tuesday. So you know that like we love Luke, but he wasn't the guy. So that left two of us. That left Mike and I.
Yes. And what was that experience like? Like I remember just kind of letting you guys go off, and you just off you went.
I mean, it took us like 20 minutes or so to get picked up, I think. 15 to 20 minutes. And it was this like 2-car convoy that pulled over. And it was like a dude towing a boat with like his niece and like his family. So they actually, both cars stopped. They like moved people around to make room for us. So it was like this dude driving, Austin and I all sitting in the front of like an F-150 or whatever. And we were just chatting. Like he drove us in and he dropped us off at the nearest gas station, like in town, so that we could call BCAA and get a tow truck. But that also caused problems because they were like, oh, we can come to you, but like you have to be at the vehicle. Like we won't go to a vehicle that you're not at. If we're going to tow it, you have to be there. And I was like, okay, well, I just hitchhiked into town, so I'm not at the vehicle. So we had the tow truck come and pick us up. Oh, that's what it was. So the tow truck came to the gas station and I got in the tow truck. And then our friend Kelsey, who lives in Castlegar, came and picked up Austin, and we like convoyed back out to the van.
Yeah, super huge shout out to our friend Kelsey Voikin, because she saved our ass. Like 100%. No doubt in my mind, if she wasn't there, and I believe she was supposed to actually be in Cranbrook that week, I recall her saying. So she wasn't technically supposed to be here, because I randomly reached out to her via Instagram, was like, hi. Nice. I hope you're doing well. Please help. So, like, yes. Shout out to you, Kelsey. You truly saved our ass. We would have been so fucked
and
if you weren't there.
The reasoning for that was because the tow truck could only fit 2 people, right? Was that why?
So they when like we had 5 of us, and if I went back with the tow truck, there wouldn't have been enough room for us to all go back like into town, into the shop with the tow truck. So Kelsey came, brought Austin. They actually got pulled over, didn't you guys?
Yes.
She got a speeding ticket on the way there.
She got a speeding ticket from like I was with her, and she got a speeding ticket at like this really bullshit area of that highway where within the span of like 100 meters it went like 60 to 70 to 80, like all different speed limit changes in about like maybe 200-300 meters or something. So she was going like 80 in the 60 zone when it was going to be 80 in like a couple seconds, and they gunned us for it. Keep in mind, this was the same weekend as like Canafest, Shambhala, like all the crazy festivals that are happening that weekend. So, cops were everywhere. The place was littered with cops.
Yeah.
So
we get back to the van, and I feel like this is like the most iconic moment of that van and of that tour. Was like there's that photo of us all like leaning against the van as it's getting towed up onto the tow truck, and then there's another set of us all just like flipping it off as it drives away. And I think like in that moment, I think it was Miles, it was like, man, we haven't named this van yet, but I think I have a name for it. Limpdick. Because it just sucked. And we were like, yeah.
It just wasn't good. I mean, and you guys have to keep in mind too, you guys being the audience, we haven't even played a show yet.
Yes,
we literally haven't.
We had to cancel the first one.
Yes, so because of as a result of what we just described, we had to cancel the first show. And just as like a side note, I just want to bring this up quickly because I thought it was hilarious and I remember it so vividly. Is Austin, when you guys were hitchhiking, I think I can't remember if it was both of you or just Austin, but you guys tied yellow like taped to your wrist. Do you remember that? And you started going like this at the side of the road. I had to bring that up because I thought it was funny. And like while you guys were doing that, I think me, Brayson, and Luke, we went for like a swim or something at the park and just like passed the time. But it was a long time. It was probably like what 2.5 hours before you guys got back.
Yeah.
So and we had no contact, so we were just waiting. It was very stressful. So that being said, we have the van on the tow truck. We're driving it into Castlegar. I think by the time we got in, what time was it? It was like late afternoon, right?
It was like 4:30, and I remember because we were trying to find a shop that we could take it to and like leave it in overnight, and all the shops were starting to close.
Yeah,
We found
because we had all our gear. Yes, we did find a shop in Castlegar that they basically like they were like, hey, we're closing, but like come park it in the shop and then we'll work on it in the morning.
Yeah, I remember.
And so we went, and Kelsey drove us all to like the hotel nearby. We went and like we were just like rattled. So we just went to the liquor store, and I think we got pizza, and then we just chilled in the hotel room and like
played some Mario Kart.
Depressure. Yeah, played some Mario Kart.
We did.
Great callback.
We did.
You go.
To this to the beginning.
Yeah.
And just kind of like we just like de-stressed and stressed a shitload.
Yes. And then so that was an interesting night. I mean, the thing is, I don't think it had really hit us completely because I mean we were so confused. We were like, okay, so the Kelowna mechanic said it was fine and like whatever. So there was just a lot of weird thoughts going on. And then I remember the morning came, like the next morning, like, do you guys remember how sullen and just like serious it was? Like we were
we were waiting for like the diagnosis from like our doctor, right? Like it was just like, okay, what is the problem?
Yeah, it's like one of us had just gone into surgery and we were sitting in the waiting room for several hours.
Yeah, exactly. So we're basically just like, we have all these bands booked, we have all these venues booked. We haven't even played a single show. We already had to cancel our show. We should have we should have had a show played by now. We should have played our Fernie show. Haven't played it yet. And that was a tough couple of hours. Like it was a while.
I thought that we might actually cancel the tour because of this band. But we were thinking
we
like,
did talk about it.
Yeah, we talked about that, and we also talked about like, what if we just go buy another band?
Yes, we did have that thought. So that being said, we go to pick up the van, and the Castlegar mechanic basically said the exact same thing as the Kelowna mechanic. Filled it up with transmission fluid, tightened everything up, drove it around, and there was still nothing wrong with it. I believe that's what he said, right? It was basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like, we don't know what's wrong.
Yeah.
But it seems to be nothing.
So then we went into preparation mode. So I would love for someone... Sorry? What were you going to say, Austin?
No, just go.
I was just going to say, I would love for someone to say, we went into a Canadian Tire, and I want someone to tell the audience what we bought in that Canadian Tire for the preparation.
Please.
Do you want to take it, Austin?
Please give me this honor.
You got.
I love this. This whole story made during this whole time I was an absolute wreck. But God, it's so funny in hindsight. So essentially, they're just like, yeah, nothing's wrong. We knew better. We literally just experienced this twice. So of course we're coming up with a plan. We're like, all right, we know where it's coming out of. We know how we're gonna approach this. So we get driving. I think we stopped by. I think we stopped by some place in Castlegar. Yeah. Picked up a couple quick supplies, but the one thing they were missing was transmission fluid. So we started by grabbing a funnel and a bucket. And our plan was whenever we stopped was when the van started spewing transmission fluid. So we put the bucket underneath and we pour it back into the transmission before we got going, so we wouldn't lose as much.
So this is at like red lights. We had to jump out and do it while the light was red before the light turned green.
Yeah, and in order to avoid as many red lights as we did, we ran some very suspicious yellow lights in Cranbrook.
We can't stop. We're driving to Calgary and we can't stop ever.
Yeah. So we drove through the entire city of Cranbrook without stopping down the main drag, which I think is one of the greatest driving achievements I've ever seen. Cranbrook's not big, but it's not small. So essentially at this point, we're like, okay, we need transmission fluid. So we called ahead to the Canadian Tire in Fernie. And we asked them, we're like, hi, like, we're looking for this brand of like transmission fluid. Do you guys have any in stock? They're like, yes, we have this much. And we're just like, great, put it all aside. We're buying all of it. And I think up until the moment we sold the van, we were still finding bottles of transmission fluid in random places.
Yes.
But the reason that we bought so much is because like this was all in our deliberation of like, what are we going to do at this shitty van? Are we going to like buy a new van, whatever? We were like, it's going to be cheaper if we just keep pouring transmission fluid into it.
For
like,
the whole tour.
All the time. Like, we're like, we're just going to tour and like every time we park, we're just gonna like dump a bottle of transmission fluid in this thing and keep going. And that was like our...
I don't know why that was our sane thought, but I remember we pulled into Calgary eventually, and we were staying at Mike's dad's friend's place. His name is Sean.
Yeah, our good friend Sean.
And he heard us say that, and he was like, "Are you fucking stupid?"
Well, no, he didn't say that
correct.
exactly.
We were stupid.
No.
He may have said that exactly. Well, because we were. Like,
oh, I mean, hold on. Before we move forward with the Calgary stuff, I just have to bring up. Do you guys remember when we hit construction and they were paving?
And they were paving the road.
Yeah.
It's fresh paved road.
oh yes.
So whoever
we would-
had to get on the pavement to put the bucket underneath to catch the transmission fluid. I can't remember who it was, but they're like, my knees. I think it was you, Aust.
It was me. I remember it very clearly. It was me.
I definitely did it a few times too, and I had to like grab a towel to
Oh
put
my god.
under my knees.
Yeah, because I couldn't keep doing it. I was just like, guys, I'm going to burn the ever-loving fuck out of my knees. I can't keep doing this. But yeah, we were stuck in traffic. And of course, you know, the transmission fluid don't stop for no one. So while we're stuck in traffic, we're literally like, we have like the hood half open. It's never fully down. And basically we move the bucket with the van.
Yeah.
And then we'd stop the van, pour it back in, turn it back on, put it back under so we could move again. And it was that, I forgot about that. I'm kind of glad I did. Fuck you for bringing it back up. I want to forget that moment.
Believable. Yeah. And I remember like, cause we bought the like big pan that we were putting all the oil in, and we would, when we were driving, we would like shove it in between the dashboard and the windshield.
Yes.
So that it was there for quick access.
I forgot.
And it was like literally like, it was like a NASCAR pit team anytime we stopped.
Yes.
Like the pit, like we would pull up and like all the doors would open and we'd be like running out with the bucket and then like throwing jugs of transmission fluid and just like
it was,
and we were fully committed to doing that the whole tour.
Yes.
Maybe.
For a month.
Like
A month. So we were committed to doing that. We did say, we're like, you know what? This isn't so bad. We did think that. But then as Brayson mentioned, Sean, who's been a big supporter of the band for a few years now, he was basically like, you guys can't do this. Like, this is not safe. Like, you just can't do that. And he's like, you're in luck. The biggest transmission shop in Canada is in Calgary. And then so, Brayson, do you remember how the phone call went when you called them? Because I do.
I remember hearing it.
I think I was like, I literally picked up the phone. I was like, hey, do you have a transmission for Ford Windstar of this year? And they're like, yeah, we got 2 rebuilt ones. And I was like, okay, we'll be there in 20 minutes.
No, it was like that. You were like, can you put it in today? That's what it was. I remember it was like, do you guys have a transmission for a 2002 Ford Windstar? I'm just like, and then the next thing was, can you put it in today? Like, that was the next thing you said. And then they're like, they're like, we can do it. And then they told you the price, which was,
it was like, what? It was $3,000, $4,000?
Not quite that high.
It was like 28 something, but that was also because on this tour we were planning on getting our front windshield replaced in Alberta because doing it in BC is so expensive.
Yes.
Because ICBC.
Yep.
well, that's another topic for another time, ICBC. But yeah, so it was cheaper just to get it replaced out of pocket in Calgary. So they actually brought like glass people to replace the front windshield while they replaced the transmission.
Yeah.
So this thing was getting some serious work done on it. I think at the end of the day, it cost about $2,800.
Yes, I think you.
Which-
I think that's right, Austin. I remember seeing
Mhm.
the invoice for that. Sorry, Mike, you're going to say something.
Yeah.
And fainting. No, I was going to say, which is not what you want to spend on an $1,800 van.
Yeah.
But I mean, we'd obviously had a lot of time to like drive and stress and talk about it.
Boy,
And
did
we were like, okay, like what happened? Like realistically, our other options are cancel a tour that we've played 0 shows of and spent months booking, which is like, no, like we're not going to do that. And then our
Mhm.
other option was buy another van in a day that might also have problems and
Yeah.
then drive across Canada, question mark. So we were like, look, the money, we will just have to figure it out. And we just had to do it. Like there was no other option.
There was no other option. So in the end, we made the right choice, had the refurbished transmission in there ready to go. And I mean, the van itself ran quite marvelously. I mean, mechanically speaking, throughout the rest of the tour.
Dude, great job.
And we also
I have
had
another thought.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Do you remember, Miles, when we picked up, you and I went to go pick up the van, and because Sean dropped us off, and we brought it back, and then we had a show that night too,
Yeah.
and we drove the van to the show, but we had been running back and forth doing the van shit all day that you hadn't eaten, and I remember you sitting in the back of the car on the way to our gig, and Luke like funneling like, food into your mouth, like feeding you ribs and like potato salad in the back of the car.
I do
Oh, that was so
remember that. Those ribs were so good. They were delicious.
Mhm.
I remember that. I do. We have a video of that
So
somewhere.
funny.
I think it's on our TikTok
Yeah.
We do.
actually. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was quite the experience. And I remember like because Sean was such a homie that day, like such a huge help. Like remember we borrowed his like brand new Dodge Ram. I had to drive this like souped up like 2018, 2019, whatever the year was. I guess 2018, like Dodge like Ram, and I was just like, oh my god, he trusts me with this giant like Ram 3500. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
Mhm.
But so basically we were able to play our show. We made it on time. It was good, and then the tour was able to basically start. Like we weren't stressed
Yeah.
anymore. We were able to carry it forward. I mean, and like I said, it mechanically it was great. However, there were some other things that happened throughout the tour.
Yes, the great however.
So the first thing, actually, I can't remember which happened first, but I'm just going to say that this was the first thing. The AC stopped working. So that
Oh yeah.
was not. So here we are again with not working AC. I remember when we bought Limpdick, we were like, okay, it has to have working AC. And I remember like we specifically cranked it and tested it out, and we're like, oh, felt the cool air. We're like, yes, this is great. But it broke. So
Yeah, and the worst part is that the driver's side window then stopped working.
yes,
Yep.
that was
So we couldn't even get fresh air.
yeah. And also, yeah, we couldn't get fresh air. And anytime we had to go through a drive-through, the
to
driver
open
had
the door.
to open the door. So those are two
However-
things. Sorry, go ahead.
There was, I think I'm jumping ahead, but I'm going to guess that this is where you're going next. There was another hole for ventilation in the car that we found out about in Toronto one day.
Yes.
And that hole was in the top corner of the driver's side windshield that we had just had replaced.
Mm-hmm.
It was like absolutely pissing rain in Toronto, and we were on the way to our show, and I was driving, and all of a sudden I just started getting like a steady stream of water onto my lap, and I was and so someone passed me a paper towel or like a shop towel, and I was driving while I had one hand with this paper towel shoved up into the corner of the window, and that was fine. And then it never happened
Yeah,
again.
I was about to say, that was it. I know, it was so weird. I was about to say, like, it never, like, nothing came from it. Like, it just happened once, and then that was it. So then there was that. So that's
even after the second tour.
Yep.
With that band, nothing happened.
Yep. So that's the third thing. So we're gonna touch on the second tour very, very briefly because we're at about an hour here. But I do want to keep going because we it's the tour vans. Like we can't cut anything out here. So those were three things that were wrong with it. And then can anyone remember the fourth?
I think I remember this one. Did it have to do with the gravel road?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'll take this one then. So, essentially, throughout our tours, when we didn't have places to stay, whether it was family or friends, we tend to go to a lot of campsites, KOAs and whatnot, or any family-owned ones. At one point, we were in the middle of nowhere, Ontario. We were driving towards, I think, a KOA, and it was down this super bumpy-ass gravelly road. Our van already hated bumps as it is, so it was already a terrible time. But to make matters worse, as we were driving, we were just, this van had a radio, so we were able to listen to music while we drove, which was great. Except while we were driving down this road, the radio slowly started shaking itself out.
Oh yes,
of the front of the van.
Yep.
Like out of the dash.
The whole thing actually came out.
Yeah, and essentially disconnected itself. Completely. I don't think we ever fully got it to work again after that.
We did. It was
Did
like
we?
kind of
Nope.
shittily shoved in and then glued.
Nope.
Taped.
Nope. It was taped.
Yeah,
It never got properly put back in. When I had sold it,
But it worked.
yes, it worked. It worked, but it was never put back in properly.
Yeah, but essentially we're driving down this road and it's probably like 2 a.m. I think it was post show of some nature, something like that. And the fucking radio is just going as just slowly sliding outwards. None of us notice until we're driving down this road. I think I'm pretty sure it was also like pretty damn foggy too. Yep. And just all of a sudden we're just listening to music and all of a sudden nothing. We're like, we're gonna die.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, it was a weird time. So that was the fourth thing. And that was basically, so those four things happened after the transmission. I'm just realizing that's four extra things. Like we usually when I tell this story to people, I'm like, oh yeah, and then the rest of the tour is fine. There was four extra things that happened.
It was not fine. It was far from fine.
In comparison to kneeling on hot asphalt and shoving a pan under the hood of our car, they were nothing. They were fine. We were like, sure.
All right.
Totally.
So that took us to the end of our first tour. And so those other things happened, but we got back, we played the rest of the shows, and we ended up persevering from that really shitty first couple days, and we were able to carry out the rest of the 3.5 weeks or so. So, that being said, we'll briefly touch on what happened in between the two tours, and then we'll go into. There's not much about the third tour that we did, so we'll.
Thankfully,
I do remember though, like we were touring with a good friend Shercy, and she had like a brand new Volkswagen Jetta, and I remember I spent that whole tour driving that Jetta because I hated this van so much.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And the thing is, the van became cosmetically worse because, so basically what happened is I was on an exchange term the year after we went on that tour, and I was in Amsterdam. So basically what I did beforehand is I sold my truck so I would have extra cash for Amsterdam. And then I basically asked the guys, I was like, you know what, can I use Limpdick as a daily driver? Who would want to do that? I don't know. I was just like, I don't really care what I drive. So I was like, screw it. I'll use it as my daily until I leave for Amsterdam, and it'll be fine. So I used it as a daily driver for like 3 months, going up to me leaving for Amsterdam, with the AC still being broken, with the windows still not working, the radio taped in all cockeyed. But the thing is, I loved having it as a daily because whenever I picked people up, like I would just tell them the story and everyone just fucking loved being in it. Like it was just like, because I kept the captain's hat in it. This always stayed on the floor. And every time I pick someone up, I'd tell them this. They're like, every single person that I either picked up or gave a ride in that van was like, well, put the fucking hat on. Like, what are you doing?
You're driving.
Exactly.
Because that was the thing. It was like, it wasn't the ship anymore, but that was the one thing that we kept, the tradition that we kept of the ship.
Exactly.
And it was like,
and it'll continue as we move to our next van.
Yes. So that was the tradition that we kept on. So then I went to Amsterdam. Maybe we'll have an episode about what it was like, working as a band of three, because we've done that a couple times with Mike traveling and myself traveling. So maybe we can do that in a further episode. But so I came back. Didn't have a vehicle, so I went back to having to use Limpdick as a daily driver. And my fucking God. Okay, so when I went to go pick it up from Mike's house, there was a severe problem with this car's alarm system. I don't know what happened when I was away, but the car would not start, and it would just go off an alarm, and it would just and I couldn't figure it out. Like it took me probably like a week of like going up and down, calling different people to figure out what was wrong with the alarm of this van. And it just started happening. Like, I don't know what it was.
And it was like, I remember it being like a garbage truck would drive by and it would set it off.
Yeah. And like,
you could literally, like, it was parked outside my house forever, never an issue. And then when we came to go, like when you came to start driving it again, I would like, I'd just be sitting at home doing something, and I would just hear the alarm going off. I'm like, oh, Miles is over trying to figure out the van. Like, and I'd come out there and we'd try and figure it out. But my God, like, and it was an annoying ass alarm too. And to make matters worse, the remote, like the fob didn't always work, so you had to press a button on the fob to turn the remote off, or to turn the alarm off. But the button didn't always work, so you're just sitting there, just looking like you're stealing this van. Yep. And man, that sucked.
Yeah, it was not good. And the thing is, like, even after we figured out how to start the van and stuff, it still was fucked. Like, you would still have to.
Didn't it?
Sorry?
It went off while we were driving once.
Oh, yeah.
I was just finding a moment to say that. Yeah. Yes, we were driving down a highway in Ontario, just whatever, totally fine. And then we're like rounding a corner or something. All of a sudden, all the doors lock simultaneously, and the alarm starts going off for the span of about 6 seconds, and then it's never does it again.
Yeah, never again.
And we were going like probably 100, 110 down this highway. Sorry, Ontario police. But yeah, like it only ever did that once, and we just thought we're like, this thing's gonna lock its own wheels or something. Like, we're gonna fucking die. Yeah, but it didn't.
Yes,
ever do that again.
So the alarm was just a terrible experience. Like it gave me so much heartache.
Like to be fair, the van as a whole was a terrible experience and caused a lot of heartache.
Exactly. So we're starting to wrap up here, because I mean, I'm looking at the notes here. There actually wasn't a ton of stuff that happened on the third tour with this, but I have to say this because it was just, I just couldn't believe it. And I also ended up driving the van for like probably like 4 months after I got home from Amsterdam and after we got back from the third tour. But before we went on that tour, Brayson and Mike, I think it was Brayson and Mike were working on the van at Mike's house. And so the first tour we had, in order for us to play GameCube, we gorilla taped a TV mount to the ceiling, to the ceiling light, and it would always fall down, and then we just tape it back up. It would fall down, add more tape, and put it back up. So by the end of the tour, we had this giant glob of tape. And so for this time, Brayson was like, me and Austin weren't here for this. Brayson was like, you know what? I got a great idea. I got a solution for this. And so I remember going to pick up the van to drive it, or going to drive it, and there's 2 fucking holes cut out of the ceiling.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through like what was going through your mind?
Clearly not much.
I was like, I'm just gonna super glue this to the actual frame of the car. So I cut out the first hole, and I pulled back the insulation, and there were wires there, so I was not able to actually put it in there. So it's like, okay, fine, we'll put it on the other side of the light. I cut out that hole, and I tried to super glue it, but for some reason, I think it's because it was a suction cup, it wouldn't actually stick to the rubber on it.
Mm.
So we ended up trying to mount it to a piece of wood and shimmy it in there so that it would hang basically on the insulation. And neither of those things worked. So we ended up just living with 2 holes in the ceiling for nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, and I feel like Bryson gets a lot of flack for doing that because he is the one that cut it, but I am probably equally to blame because I was supervising and we came up with the idea together. In theory, great idea.
In theory, yes.
In practice,
2 large holes in the roof.
cost us so much money in the long run.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, you have to keep in mind, I was kind of lacking in getting a new vehicle, so I continued to drive Limpdick, and we have to keep in mind the grand tally here. So now we have the AC not working, we have the window not rolling up and down on the driver's side still. We have the radio that's not in properly, and now there's 2 fucking holes cut out of the ceiling, which was just, I mean, it was hilarious.
But a brand new rebuilt transmission.
With a brand new rebuilt transmission.
Yeah, and the thing only had like what, by the time we were done with it, like 130,000 clicks. Like it was still a pretty like low kilometer vehicle.
Yeah, it was. It was actually very low kilometers. That's actually one of the main reasons why we bought it. So I mean, we were going to take another van for the last tour. That ended up falling through. So then we were like, oh gosh, round 2. We have to take this thing on the road across Canada again.
But you know what? We had no issues with it.
We didn't.
Yeah, other than the alarm going off while driving.
Yeah, other than the alarm going off while driving, it actually served that tour quite well. We had no issues. We were able to downsize our rig from the previous year, right? Like our complete tour rig.
Yeah.
And saved 0 room somehow.
Yeah.
It was still exactly the same.
Like 2 extra people.
Yeah, 2
That's
vehicles
true.
though.
That's true.
That time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get into the logistics of the tours another time, but I'll just close it by saying how much of a pain in the ass it was to sell that vehicle, because I had it, and I mean, I would just said I would take the responsibility. I would sell it, and again, took a very long time to sell it. I mean, not many people want a van that has a dent in the side, the air conditioning not working, the radio being not put in properly, having 2 holes in the ceiling, the driver's side window not rolling up. It's not
Okay.
It's
We
not.
get it. It was
God,
a piece of shit.
not
what a
easy.
laundry list.
I know. That's why I said it again, because I just couldn't believe how much shit piled up on it. But I ended up selling it to this guy in Abbotsford, and he was just like, oh, he made it so like difficult. Like we agreed on a price, and then he haggled me down like another $15, and like at that point I was like, you know what, like fuck it, you like have it, like it's okay. I think he ended up giving me like $485 instead of the $500. I think that was like the final thing or whatever. Like, and I was just like, I cannot be bothered with this anymore. Like, too much heartache. I had been already trying to sell it for a couple months, and that was just it. And I remember very clearly. I don't remember if you guys remember the video I sent to you guys when I sold it.
I was just about to bring it up. Yes.
Go ahead, bring it up.
So basically, the video that Miles proceeded to send us after he sold the van was him sitting in the back seat of the car, because you dropped it off at that person's house, right? Like it was already there.
Yeah.
And so essentially, it's a video of Miles filming out of this car's back window with the van driving away, and you just slowly see a middle finger just pop out in front of the camera view as we're driving away. And I just sat there and I was just...
Oh, it was
Salute.
the amount of relief I felt. I mean, it was kind of sad in a way, of course, because like, I mean, we've been chatting for how long about it. Like, it gave us so many good memories, so many good stories. So for that, I am forever...
So many bad memories.
So many bad memories as well. Sorry, that's a good way to put it as well.
It's,
But, I mean, at the end of the day, it did what it was intended to do, technically.
Mm-hmm.
We made it do what it was intended.
Exactly. We made it do what it was intended to do.
Through brute force and financial investment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you guys were keeping track, remember I said we sold it for $485 and we had bought it for $18. I'm not going to do the rest of the math for you because it's just making me more sad. But
probably not as big of a loss as our first tour van.
with the transmission and stuff.
Tough to say.
It's close. It's close. Ultimately,
sorry, Mike.
We have a lot of advice to give people who are interested in, the independent music scene. But purchasing tour vans is not our forte.
No,
No.
not our forte at all. So going forward,
Do not ask us for help with that, but please tell us your stories because we want to hear. All
We'd
of them.
love to hear
we
it.
would love to hear your stories. If you have any tour van stories, I mean, it's so common. You hear like, oh, the tour van has to break down, So it's happened to us already. We got it out of the way. So now we got it.
It will never happen again.
I mean, we said that after the first one, but we'll see. I think we'll be okay. I think moving forward, we don't have a tour van right now, but when it comes time to get another one, we have all this experience under our belt with what not to do. So that being said, I feel like when we buy our next tour van, we will be in good hands, or we at least we. It's nice to think that way,
I have faith.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I have good faith. So that
in short, God bless our 2 tour vans. My anxiety has never been higher.
Yeah. Exactly, and that basically concludes the story of our experience with tour vans. Like we just mentioned, if you have any stories that you'd like to share about your tour vans, feel free to either hit us up on Instagram or send us an email at royaloakofficial@gmail.com. We love connecting with you guys and with our fans, so we would love to hear any stories you have. Do you guys have anything to add before we wrap it up here?
Absolutely not. I think what's said has been said, and I'm ready to leave it.
Perfect.
Ready to move forward from Limpdick.
Yeah. Can't wait to
She's
buy
in the
another
past.
shitty tour van.
Yep. It's all been aired out. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. We'll leave links to all of our social media and our Spotify and everything in the show notes as always. And thanks for hanging out with us. This was a real fun one for us to record, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
See ya.